Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Inside Movies Galore. I'm your host, David Streggy, and today I have another review for you of a film from 1980 that is out of print. This is a film that's out of print. It was distributed by um, Group I Film with Lionsgate, which is now owned by Disney. And presented by Brandon Chase, but directed by Louis Teague. And the film is called Alligator. If I had to choose a creature film, a creature feature that creeps me out still to this day, it's Alligator. And it's the story about how a little girl. I mean, in the very beginning, we see a little girl seeing an alligator attack, and then evidently taking a little baby alligator home and becoming a pet. And evidently, she wasn't doing very well at school, and the father ended up, while she was away, ended up flushing the alligator down in the toilet, and it ended up in the sewers. Well, much later, when the little girl was grown up, it's very vague how the alligator grew to the size that it did, but ultimately there is, I believe, a pharmaceutical company of some sort that seems to know the mayor and is doing scientific experiments on stray cats and dogs, and whatever experiments that they are doing on them are throwing them into the sewer, and there's a police detective by the name of David, played by Robert Forster, who in the very beginning we find that there is a dog that seems to be relatively larger in size, and then there are some victims that begin to show up, that one being a construction worker's leg, and I think what happens is eventually David finds out that it's an alligator of a relatively larger size, and no one seems to believe his story until he takes one of his detectives down and he gets chased, and the pictures from a newspaper man that is dogging David from evidently the detective had his partner get shot, so he had that following him around. But what happens is the alligator moves from the sewer to the city and starts to attack the people in the city, and there's a scene where he's the alligator is in one of the pools, and there's a child's party going on, and two boys end up throwing the kid into the water, and he gets eaten. And I think that was a great shot. The only thing I wish that it would have I wish it would have stayed on it a little bit longer, but to me even though the film was creepy, and you could see that the animatronics worked in this film, I wanted to see a little bit more blood. I wanted to see a little bit more violence in the gore, but it stayed somewhat safe. I mean, it made you think that, this gator was really real. And when it ended up crashing one of the parties that the head of the pharmaceutical um, was putting on for a wedding within his family, I believe, um, and pretty much 8 people. Uh, there was definitely more gore than I thought there would be in this film, and I feel like the alligator itself was relatively smart, since it was going after the people that made it the way it was. Um, the other thing is that there was a love interest in the story, and it just so happens to be the little girl who had grown up to actually be like the leading authority on reptiles, and she doesn't fully believe Robert Forster's character David's a story on the alligator until she actually sees it herself. But that is Marissa, and she is played by Robin Riker. Now, another thing that I like in this film is that Henry Silva comes in as this charismatic hunter who claims to have hunted many different things down, and he ultimately is very confident about going after this creature. And when he ultimately gets eaten, I like that you get to see some of the a little bit as he's screaming down the throat of this animatronic alligator. I mean, there's a scene where the entire police force and the fire department and everybody is going through the tunnels, banging noise, because evidently noise attracts gators. And it is when it moves right by them. I mean, there's a moment where David, the detective, and that detective that he brought him down, you can see that the alligator is in the background, and suddenly he moves. It's things like this that creep me out, especially when I mean, there's a moment where you see this alligator in the dark, and it's just marching um, through the sewers, and you can tell that alligator is actually real. So I think that having a creature grow to an amazing size and terrorizing a city, I think this was one of the best done films for a drive-in kind of a movie. And yeah, it was a B movie, and it was definitely older. But you had the mayor, played by Jack Carter, who um, didn't believe the detective and saddled him because he had more confidence in this hunter. And when the hunter was killed, I like that the detective Robert Forster, which he ultimately has played in many other things since, but he played in The Lady in Red, uncredited as Turk, which was one of Louis Teague's previous films about Dillinger. And I think he played this detective down to a T. I think I think when he went and took police evidence and used it against the alligator, I think that was one of the best moments in the film. So, in any case, hopefully you like how I've described this film. Um, I think one of the things that I enjoyed is there's a documentary on the DVD called um, well, I forget what it's called, but there's a documentary speaking with the writer um, of the film, and he mentions Milwaukee because evidently there was a way that Miller used to bring their or something about Milwaukee in their beer. So, in any case, hopefully you've enjoyed the description of my this film. And this is one of my favorite of the horror genre, of the creature feature style, and it is up that alley of being as close to being R-rated as it can be, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the fact that that it still brings that creepy factor to me, and yeah. In any case, like and subscribe to my page if you have not. Definitely check the film out on your own if you have not. And thanks for listening, and check out some of my other reviews. Have a great day, evening, or morning.